Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You wouldn't be truly wealthy if you just earned more money. Now, this is an apparently contradictory statement because the concept of being wealthy is exactly having more money, right? Well, more or less. If you stop and think deeply, you see there are other more important details. For example, besides earning more money, it is important that you don't spend it all. It also helps to have the necessary knowledge and abilities to multiply that money. And that is why it is not enough to just earn more money. There is something more important than money to those who want to be rich. And that something is being taught through a story in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In this story, Robert Kiyosaki tells us how he learned to become rich by comparing the education he received from his parents. There is his biological father, the one he calls the poor dad, a highly educated teacher who worked for the government but lived from salary to salary, almost unable to pay his bills and never saving up any money. His best friend's father was the one he calls the rich dad. He was a businessman specialized in real estate investments who decided to teach his son and also his son's best friend, Robert, everything that he knew about becoming rich. And these teachings were split into 6 practical lessons. These lessons teach how financial education is more important than money to those who want to become rich. So in today's Arata Academy summary, we will see each one of these 6 lessons in detail from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It is a book released in 1997 that is still relevant in its essence because it teaches principles that time cannot alter. And lesson number 1 is that rich people don't work for money. Money should be a consequence of having something even more valuable. The first lesson that the Rich Dad teaches us is that rich people don't work for money. This seems contradictory, but we'll think about it for a minute. The standard thing that people do is working for money. When people look for a job, they're offered a job, one of the first things that comes to our mind is the salary. Now, the problem is that this standard way is not the right way to make people wealthy. Of course, there are professionals who are paid extremely well for what they do, for their work, but even then they are the exception. And these exceptions are not as rich as truly wealthy people are. And this makes you think a well-paid professional is making money for a company. So the people who are really earning big money are the owners of the company. Poor and middle-class people work for money. Rich people make money work for them. It doesn't matter how much the professional is earning, as long as they're exchanging time for money, they won't be able to become truly wealthy. Of course, there is no problem with this. If the person's goal is to simply work in their field of expertise, to earn enough to just meet their basic needs, then everything is fine. The problem is to have a goal of becoming rich and choosing to work for money. The mistake is thinking that having a good job and rising in your area of expertise is the way to become a truly wealthy person. If you work for money, you will stop receiving money the day that you're no longer able to continue working. Now, lesson number 2, why financial education? Learn how assets and liabilities work and make better choices. The only way to get out of the rat race and become a truly wealthy person is understanding how money works. That is what the Rich Dad calls financial education. Just think about it. What did you learn in school about money? Did you learn how money came to existence? Did you know how taxes work? Did you receive any classes about assets and liabilities? Unfortunately, most of us received close to no financial education at school. We finished school knowing how to do math, or knowing historical events, or even knowing to put the names to different chemical compounds, but we're practically illiterate about money. Financial literacy is the most important thing for anyone who wants to be wealthy, even more than money. Someone who knows how money works could lose all their wealth and still be able to raise money again. But someone who has a lot of money and loses everything, they will never be able to make money again if they're not financially literate. In order to understand how money works, you will have to make an additional and long research about accounting, about taxation, about financial math. But there is an essential concept that if you master it, you can consider yourself at least on the right way to financial literacy. And this concept is knowing the difference between assets and liabilities. So why? Why is knowing the difference between assets and liabilities so important? It's because rich people buy assets. Poor people, middle-class people buy liabilities, thinking that they are assets. An asset is something that puts money into your wallet. A liability is something that withdraws money from your wallet. This may seem easy at first, but you need to know numbers very well to understand if you're actually putting money in your pocket or withdrawing money from your pocket. Let's see an example here. A property, a real estate. Is it an asset or a liability? It depends. If it is the property or the house where you're living in, it is a liability. You have to pay for the house's maintenance and the taxes. Now, if that property would be a house that you're renting, it could become an asset as long as the property is being rented, and that property will give you money every month. But if the tenant leaves the property, that same property can become a liability. And once you understand the difference between assets and liabilities, all you need to do to become truly wealthy is buying more and more assets instead of spending your money on cars and phones or other liabilities that would waste your money. You have to focus on buying assets that give you more money. By accumulating those assets, this investment will soon create so much income that you will be able to cover for your basic expenses like your housing, your food, your transport. And when it happens, you can say that mathematically you have reached your financial independence. There are several assets available for you to purchase, but all of them involve what we call businesses. This is lesson number 3. You have to take care of your business. You can run your own business, and you can also invest in someone else's business. You know that you have received a good financial education when you're able to understand the true meaning of a company. For example, what is McDonald's business? Most people think that their main business is selling burgers, meals, but McDonald's owner already stated that their main business is real estate. The real estate assets of these fast food cafes made the owners into millionaires. When you understand a business, you will be able to care for it. You're going to be able to make it grow. Your job is to take care of your assets. It is choosing well and buying everything that can make you earn money. Companies, stocks, funds, and options, royalties, any other type of investment. And there are 2 ways to do this. You can be a full-time entrepreneur, investor. You can also open your own business. You can hire personnel. You can boost all of that with your time, and you will receive income from this business. But you can also continue on your regular job. You can receive your income through your salary and invest part of your earnings in other people's companies. For example, you can invest directly in a small company of an acquaintance of yours, or you could put your money into more structured investments in the financial market. In any case, you need to look after the investments after you are doing this. You need to be careful. You need to check if the company is actually making you earn money. You have to check if the price that you're paying for is a fair price. You need to know when to exit that business. The best thing to do is to deepen into one type of asset. You buy that asset and then you try to buy another one. For example, if you're interested in real estate, you could study hard to understand how the real estate market works and then start investing. Someone with a lot of money can buy houses and apartments and land. But even people who don't have so much money, they can also invest in the same area through real estate funds, buying small properties, by reforming them and selling them at higher prices, flipping these properties. The important thing is that you know what you're doing. Besides that, you also need to be clear about numbers. You need to know exactly how much you're spending, how much you're getting back, in order to be sure whether you're dealing with an asset or a liability. And to do so, you also have to understand how taxes work. That is lesson number 4. The history of taxes and the power of the corporation. You need to do your tax planning. Taxation is money that the government takes from you compulsively with the authorization of the law. That money is not a punishment, a sanction for you doing something wrong. It's just the cost of living in society. It is the money from taxes that pays for government's administration expenses, the maintenance of streets and roads and schools and health centers and other public goods. Taxation varies greatly according to each country. But in most of them, one thing is for sure. If you are an employee, you're going to be paying a much bigger part of taxes than bigger companies. Companies and entrepreneurs, they know how taxes work. And it's not our mission here to be discussing whether that is right or wrong. The fact is, it happens. And if you understand how taxes work, you can also work within the law to be charged less and build your fortune faster. Usually, an employee receives their salary after the taxes have been deducted. They pay up to 1/3 or 1/4 of their salary before they receive their salary. And meanwhile, the companies first receive their gross revenue, they pay for their operational cost, and only then they pay their taxes. In many countries, the profit of these companies is even exempted from certain taxation. That is why corporations are so powerful. They have millions of stockholders investing money in just one company, and they're able to have highly educated professionals, tax lawyers, accountants, who can find ways to reduce their expenses through taxes under the law. And that tax reduction means more income to the stakeholders. You can become one of these shareholders. If you save part of your income, if you buy assets in the shape of a stock in those companies, these publicly traded companies in the stock market, you can become an associate of the biggest companies in the world with just a small amount of money, as these companies are making money from nothing. And here is lesson number 5. Rich people invent money. You have to find new opportunities that bring profit. When you increase your financial education level, you begin to understand that money is nothing but a story that we tell. Money is an agreement that people reached in order to live in society and ease the exchange of products and services. And once you understand that, you will obtain the power that rich people have to make up money where before there was nothing. For example, think of any invention that a company came up with, like a phone. For centuries, we had lived without phones and nobody felt the need for one. Until one day, one company created that device saying that we needed that, and today it is pretty difficult to find someone who does not live with a phone. You can make up money through creating new products, new services. The product doesn't even have to be a material thing. A good example are video game items. Millions of players around the world spend real-life money on video game items, and they are nothing but virtual code. They are clothes for avatars and weapons and abilities. Companies created the need and the money for nothing. Those who dare to invent money can be very well paid. The capitalist system rewards risk as long as the company is able to turn that risk into something fruitful. You can also have this ability to invent money by identifying opportunities that pass in front of you. Any problem can be solved and be a business opportunity. You can choose to solve this problem by creating a company that offers these solutions, or you can look for opportunities to invest in other companies that have already been created to solve different types of problems. And once again, we go back to the need for learning, to understand that we always need to be learning how money works. And this is precisely the Rich Dad's 6th and final lesson. Lesson 6. Work in order to learn. Do not work for money. We saw in the first lesson that rich people don't work for money. So what do they work for? Rich people work to learn. The more you study about finances and businesses, the more open your mind will be to finding opportunities to earn money. Instead of passively waiting for the opportunities to show up, you will know how to run towards them. Now please pay attention. Working to learn doesn't mean to spend your whole life submitting yourself to low salaries and exploiting companies that say that, oh, here you're learning. If you choose that path, make it short. You can really learn how the business works inside, and then you can later create an improved version of it. Please also pay attention to what learning about finances means. Reading about business people, their stories, organization stories, they can help you a little, but you shouldn't focus only on that. If you really want to increase your financial education, you need to study for real. You need to stay away from those motivational materials and deepen into complex matters like accounting, labor rights, taxation, and project management. And even if you choose to hire specialized professionals to take care of these matters, you still have to study. Because in order to hire the right people and talk to these professionals, you'll need to understand what they're talking about. The same goes for knowing whether your employees are doing a good job or not. And this period of time that you spend studying is not a waste of time, it is an investment. That the most valuable thing that you have is your own mind. So if a good financially educated mind, you're going to be able to differentiate assets and liabilities. You can choose the best assets, you can pay less money on taxes, you can multiply your money to the point of not having to work anymore to pay for your bills. Your financially educated mind will help you to get out of this rat race. It will transform you into a truly wealthy person no matter how much money you have today. Even without money, by educating yourself. If you have business ideas, you can make other people invest in them. If you don't take action, none of the Rich Dad lessons will help you to make more money. The book Rich Dad, Poor Dad is successful precisely because it explains in an easy way, with a captivating story, the importance of financial education. Of course, there are some criticism about the veracity of the story, or about the author's behavior throughout the years, but a good interpretation of the book helps you to always extract valuable lessons. Despite the quality of the 6 lessons, there is something else, which is something that is very well emphasized at the end of the book. None of the lessons will help you to become rich if you don't take action. Studying about finances and businesses is very important, but you really have to put that knowledge into practice. Because you see, if you know everything already about assets and liabilities, about taxation, about investments, but still working in your regular job and without saving any part of your salary to do investments, then your knowledge is worth nothing. If your goal is to become wealthy, put that as a personal goal and run after that goal. Do not wait for a future moment. The perfect moment will never come. You need to take action now. The path to becoming wealthy can be long, complicated, and slow, but it is possible. And the sooner you begin, the better. The time effects on the compound interest are able to exponentially multiply your wealth. Now, if you're still here watching, showing that you're really interested in receiving a better financial education, let me invite you to attend an enrichment course, Truly Wealthy. You can have a sneak peek of what the course is about by watching a special lesson in the course about financial taboos. And to watch that, you can just go to arata.se/money taboo.